this. So we've got Marco Forgione on. He's the Director General of the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade. They work across the UK, but they are based in Peterborough. Hi, Marco.
Morning, Dottie.
Can it be true that restrictions on the Strait of Hormuz are hitting Michael's takings in St Ives?
Yes, and what Michael has shown and spoken about is a fine example of just how interconnected global trade and global supply chains are. We cannot insulate ourselves from what's happening in Hormuz, either through the impacts on the global economy, which filter through to our economy, or indeed the input shocks with the cost of energy, which is a key input for every business.
We often think about global trade sort of making the world stronger, I guess, making the economies around the world stronger. But does it at the same time make us all more fragile?
Yes. Dottie, I'm agreeing with everything you're saying today, because the reality is, for the best part of 50 years, global supply chains have grown to be highly efficient, highly interconnected. But what we hadn't really understood is that by building in that supreme efficiency, we'd also baked in immense vulnerability and fragility. And in recent years, what we've seen is these external shocks have begun to break up the global supply chains, and that's led to uncertainty, instability, inflation, and the not just cost increases, but availability issues and that dread of shrinkflation.
And is this across the board? Are there any sectors that are finding ways to, it sounds awful, but capitalise on a crisis?
If you look at virtually every business, they are struggling with these high input costs of energy. That's causing inflation to go up, which means that consumers are facing not just increased prices, both at the pump and on the shelves, but the revenue that they're getting isn't increasing. So people are having to look at the cost of living and make difficult decisions, which means that, retailers, great local retailers like Michael, are struggling because people don't have the same amount of disposable income and also are feeling concerned about the future. So are looking to cut their costs. So this has a knock-on effect across the whole economy.
So focusing on the picture in Cambridgeshire and how our local businesses, big and small, might be affected, I guess that as well as, retailers like Michael there, agriculture is huge in Cambridgeshire, as is tech. Are those industries going to be vulnerable?
Yes. So if we look at agriculture, there are growing problems with regards to not just the cost, but also the availability of fertilizers because of the Strait of Hormuz being closed, which was a key transit route for those chemicals and those fertilizers. CO2 and helium have been constrained again because they transit through the Straits of Hormuz, and that's important for food manufacturing and for our advanced technical manufacturers. You've got then not just the cost increase of energy, but availability for our industrial sector. And for pharma, we've got the issues of the precursors, which are the key chemicals used to make pharmaceuticals, and those supply chains have been massively disrupted as well. So I'm afraid that Cambridgeshire has been particularly impacted. And if we look at Felixstowe Port, of course, because supply chains have been disrupted, because shipping is massively disrupted, Felixstowe Port have done a wonderful job, but are having to deal with uncertainty and increasing spikes with regards to shipping, which causes problems for getting the containers in and out of Felixstowe.
Marco, as always, you have made me think. You have made me think about how it can be a great strength and a great boon to have the world so interconnected as it is these days with technology, etc., etc. But it can also create its own problems. Marco Forgione, Director General of the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade.